Tonight, the horror right before the holidays. The disturbing video of a car plowing into a Christmas market, leaving at least 2 people dead in Germany. Police saying a driver plowed a vehicle into the large crowd at this Christmas market. At least 2 people killed, more than 60 injured. The suspect in custody tonight. Officials saying he is a doctor originally from Saudi Arabia. The latest from Germany just ahead. And breaking news on Capitol Hill, the House just a short time ago passing a deal to avert a government shutdown. Just hours before the midnight deadline. The last-minute scramble after President-elect Donald Trump sank a previous bipartisan deal. The winter storm moving into the Northeast, the rain and snow hitting just as record holiday travel ramps up. The man convicted in the Delphi double murder of 2 teenage girls receiving the maximum 130 years in prison. The judge's scathing words before handing down the sentence. Before you head out on your holiday road trip, our inside look at Google Maps and how AI helps find your fastest route. And the man who keeps one American city on time with the help of a more than century-year-old clock.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. We start tonight with the breaking news from Germany, where a peaceful night out at a traditional Christmas market turned to horror and bloodshed. The pictures we're about to show you, we warn, are shocking and upsetting. In fact, let me pause for a moment for those who may want to look away. All right, now the video. It shows a car being driven at high speed, plowing into crowded rows of shoppers who had no warning or time to escape the racing vehicle. Officials in the town of Magdeburg say at least 2 people have died and more than 60 others were injured, some with potentially life-threatening conditions. Other video tonight showing the moment police confronted the driver at gunpoint, taking him into custody without further incident. Authorities say the suspect is a doctor from Saudi Arabia. Aaron McLaughlin has late developments.
Tonight, horror at a crowded Christmas market in Germany. A deadly attack just days before Christmas Eve. Captured on chilling surveillance video. You see the moment around 7 p.m. A driver plows a car into the Magdeburg market, packed with holiday shoppers. The car barely slowing down, even as it turns the corner. Footage from the scene shows the driver surrounded by police and pinned to the ground. He has yet to be named, though police are describing him as a 50-year-old doctor from Saudi Arabia who came to Germany 18 years ago. The motive unclear, but police suspect the attack was deliberate. The perpetrator acted alone, and we don't believe there are other threats, Germany's state premier told reporters tonight. This footage shows the panic that immediately followed the attack. You hear the sound of a crying baby as bystanders scramble to save the dying and wounded. Authorities say among the dead, an adult and a small child. Dozens were injured, some seriously. Chilling echoes of 2 European terror attacks, both from 2016, including when a driver plowed a massive truck through a promenade in Nice, France, killing 86 people. The same year, another driver careened a truck into a Christmas market in Berlin, killing 12. Officials say both attacks were carried out by Islamic extremists. Both drivers were shot dead by authorities. And now, 8 years later, Germany on edge again after another holiday nightmare.
And Aaron, we know this has rippled across the world. Back here, the NYPD ramping up security as a result of the German attack.
That's right, Lester. The NYPD says it's sending additional security resources to Christmas markets like this one, as well as other high-profile locations across the city. Chicago police also saying they're keeping an eye tonight on their Christmas markets, though there have been no specific or credible threats made at this time. There have been threats made to markets overseas. Lester?
Aaron McLaughlin tonight. Thank you. Now we turn to the cliffhanger in Washington, where the House tonight has just passed a spending bill to prevent the federal government from shutting down at midnight tonight. Ryan Nobles is at the Capitol for us. Ryan, this just played out moments ago.
Lester, that's right. After a hectic 48 hours, Republicans and Democrats came together to strike a deal to keep the federal government open with just hours to spare. Tonight, House Republicans scrambling in a last-minute effort to prevent a partial federal government shutdown. voting on their third attempt to come up with a spending deal before a midnight deadline. The plan passing tonight.
We are really grateful that tonight, in bipartisan fashion, with overwhelming majority of votes, we passed the American Relief Act of 2025.
The Republican Plan C strips much of what was in the original massive spending deal, a bipartisan plan blown up by last-minute opposition from President-elect Trump and billionaire Elon Musk. The new deal has three parts. It extends government funding through March, provides $100 billion in new disaster aid, and gives $10 billion in funding for farmers. What it does not include are any provisions to raise or suspend the debt ceiling, something Trump insisted on. But it comes after a major setback for President-elect Trump, after 38 Republicans joined virtually every Democrat, killing a slimmed-down GOP spending plan last night after Trump had asked the GOP to support it. Still, Republicans touting this new proposal despite the chaos.
We have a clean CR, we have the farm aid, and we have the disaster relief. Then that shows our unity, our ability to effectively legislate.
Meanwhile, NBC's Gabe Gutierrez pressing the White House.
Shouldn't Americans hear from the President of the United States just hours from a shutdown?
What Americans need to know is that you have Republicans in Congress, in the House, who got in a way, who stopped a bipartisan agreement.
All of it also highlighting the growing role of billionaire Elon Musk, who will lead Trump's effort to slash wasteful government spending. Musk slammed the original sprawling 1,500-page spending bill, which was filled full of items unrelated to the funding of government, including allowing for a pay raise for members of Congress. Though Musk did repost a false claim, the bill included $3 billion for a new NFL stadium in Washington. In a phone call Thursday, Trump told NBC News Musk's actions came with his blessing. I told him that if he agrees with me, he could put out a statement, Trump said. He's looking at things from a cost standpoint. But Democrats slamming Musk's role. How worried are you about the influence that Elon Musk has?
I think it's pretty clear that right now Elon Musk is the de facto leader of the House Republicans. I mean, I've literally never seen anything like it.
So, Ryan, what happens now with the shutdown deadline still hours away?
Well, Lester, the work is not done. The Senate still needs to vote on this bill, and it does require 60 votes in order to be passed. Lawmakers, though, tonight feel optimistic that the bill will pass the Senate, and President Biden has already said that he will sign it into law.
Right, but then there's a setup to go through this whole situation again in just 3 months.
Yeah, that is right, Lester. This bill only funds the government through March of next year, meaning that President Trump will be dealing with this just as he is attempting to keep momentum behind his ambitious agenda in his first 100 days. Lester?
Okay, Ryan, thank you. Just 5 days before Christmas, some messy winter weather is already affecting holiday travel, and it could get worse. Antonia Hilton is following it from Newark Liberty International Airport. Antonia, this is crunch time.
Lester, tomorrow will be the busiest travel day for people heading out for the holiday, according to AAA. But with almost 7,000 flight delays and hundreds of cancellations, some experts warn you may be better off waiting to travel on Christmas Day.
It's the start of the biggest holiday travel season in history, with AAA estimating almost 120 million Americans are traveling at least 50 miles from home. But just in time for the travel crush comes tricky weather. Up to 6 inches of snow will fall across the Northeast, and gusty winds and colder than average temperatures forecast throughout the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic.
Fingers crossed, all the snow, but it's pretty good so far.
And today, one small plane even landed in the snow outside Albany. Nobody was injured. TSA warning the 40 million flyers expected through January 2nd, prepare for possible delays. From the West Coast,
we thought there was going to be more traffic, so we said we got here early.
To the east, where Boston's Logan Airport had long lines before dawn.
I've flown out of this airport probably 50 times, and I've never seen people like this.
Experts say with Hanukkah and Christmas starting on the same day, the roads, rails, and skies will be packed. The busiest travel days for those returning will be Friday after Christmas and the Monday before New Year's.
Based on what I saw today, I think my connections might be a little tight.
U.S. Navy sailor Andre Jones carefully planned his flights 1 month ago.
Wanted to get home for the holidays, currently stationed abroad, so I just wanted to surprise my wife.
hoping that winter weather won't dispel his holiday magic. Antonia Hilton, NBC News, Newark, New Jersey.
Now to the growing alarm over those mystery drone sightings across parts of the country. The FAA has now temporarily banned drones over parts of New York after issuing a similar ban in New Jersey, where the FAA had said the government may use, quote, deadly force against drones if they pose an imminent security threat. Anguish and wrenching emotion today in an Indiana courtroom as the man convicted of killing 2 teenage girls was sentenced to 130 years in prison in the case known as the Delphi murders. Maggie Vespa is there.
In Delphi, Indiana, husband and father turned convicted killer Richard Allen handed the maximum sentence, 130 years in prison for the 2017 slayings of 13-year-old Abby Williams and her 14-year-old best friend Libby German. The judge telling Allen, "You rank right up there with the most hideous cases I've ever presided over," adding, "You continue to roll your eyes at me as you have throughout the trial." Tonight, with a gag order lifted, the girls' families able to share their anguish for the first time in court. She would be 22 and she should be here, Libby's mom said. So many what ifs. She doesn't get to fall in love and have babies. Abby's grandfather comparing the pain to losing a limb that will never grow back. Libby's uncle leaving the courthouse.
It still ain't justice. Nothing is going to bring the girls back.
Prosecutors praising the girls for securing key evidence. Recording Allen on Libby's cell phone just before, they say, he slit their throats.
Libby for recording the defendant as he walked across the bridge, having the wherewithal to pull out her phone. Abby for hiding the phone.
The defense maintaining Allen's innocence, arguing during the trial there's no DNA evidence tying him to the scene and telling reporters,
looking forward to the next steps.
While tonight, Christmas decorations hang alongside memorials in this rural town forever changed by 2 brutal murders.
And Allen's team says they plan to appeal soon. State law requires they file initial paperwork within 30 days. Lester.
Maggie Vespa, thank you. Also tonight, the operators of Zelle, the popular electronic payment app, and 3 major banks facing a new federal lawsuit alleging they failed to protect consumers from widespread fraud. Brian Chung is here. Brian, explain to me, how does the government say customers were impacted?
Lester, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau says that customers at 3 banks, JP Chase, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America, have lost $870 million to fraud since Zelle was launched 7 years ago. As a reminder, the banks co-own Zelle, and in the suit, regulators allege Zelle had poor identity verification methods, failed to properly investigate fraud claims, and to provide customers required reimbursements. Now, in a statement, Zelle called the claims legally and factually flawed and driven by political factors. JP Chase criticized regulators blasting the lawsuit as part of a political agenda. And Bank of America said the action threatens to impose huge new costs on banks. As far as Wells Fargo, they declined to comment, Lester.
All right, Brian, thank you. In 60 seconds, the mystery over the disappearance of flight MH370 10 years ago, why the search is back on. And the app makes it look so easy, but just how do Google Maps get you from here to there? Our inside look is next. It is one of the biggest mysteries in aviation history. Now, more than 10 years after Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared, the search is going back on. The Malaysian government has agreed to allow a private company to look for the plane in the Indian Ocean. The bodies of the 239 people on board have never been recovered. Also tonight, if your family is driving this holiday season, chances are you'll have an app helping guide the way. But how does it know the best route? Gotti Schwartz takes us inside Google Maps to find out.
At Google's workshop, the sound of tinkering with high-tech toys that have laid the groundwork for calculating your trip home for the holidays and that magical number of your ETA. But how does it all work?
Step 1, you need to map everything. And we've all seen those cars with the contraptions on the top. This right here, this is the latest and greatest tech. All of those cameras, all of those sensors now fit on your back, which allows us to explore anywhere.
If Santa wanted to navigate the Empire State Building or warm up down in Miami Beach, that's now immersive. But for a more conventional commute, like the 405 in LA, Miriam Daniel, the head of Google Maps, explains.
How do you know how long it's going to take us to get somewhere when traffic's always changing?
It sounds really simple, but there's a lot of AI and computing magic that happens behind the scenes.
These days, that AI combines millions of miles of maps, aggregate GPS data pinging from the movement of cell phones, historical traffic data, and real-time feedback from users.
What are the worst times to travel for the holidays?
That's a good question. During the holiday season leading up to December 25th, the worst time to get on the road is between 1 and 4 p.m.
So rush hour is actually right in the middle of the afternoon.
Exactly. If you want to beat the traffic, try going after 6 p.m. Or if you're an early bird, try to get on the road before 10 a.m.
And if you want to be extra prepared for those complicated turns, you can animate the route.
We think of as a map, which is a 2D object, has now become like a video.
And look at this, we're at the final stretch of this route, and it actually shows you parking spots.
Whether that's a visit to your in-laws in Rudolph, Wisconsin, or your grandfolks in North Pole, Alaska, even in the snow, guided by a 9-camera open sleigh. Gotti Schwartz, NBC News, Palo Alto, California.
And you don't have to fold it. Coming up, the obesity drug Zepbound just approved for another use that could help millions of Americans. Plus, how artificial intelligence is being used to help children with dyslexia in our series AI Revolution. We're back now with the breaking news on Zepbound. The FDA has just approved the weight loss drug for people with moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea and obesity. Sleep apnea affects millions of Americans, many of them also with obesity. Recent studies funded by Zepbound's maker Eli Lilly found that the drug was effective in reducing breathing disruptions. Now to our series AI Revolution, where we look at both the concerns over and incredible potential of artificial intelligence. Tonight, how AI is being used to help children with dyslexia. Here's Rahima Ellis.
14-year-old Calvin Martin is now comfortable doing something he used to dread.
Growing up, what was reading like for you?
Oh, it was miserable.
Miserable because at 9 years old, Calvin was diagnosed with dyslexia.
I knew I was gonna fail.
Estimates for how many people have dyslexia range from as low as 3 to higher than 17%. Dyslexia is a learning disability that affects how people read. They see things the same as everyone else, but have problems processing the words. Linguist Coral Ho founded the company EDU National in upstate New York and designed a game-based program to address that, using artificial intelligence technology she calls Dissolve AI.
It reorganizes the brain.
Ho says, unlike other online educational games, there's no pre-made format to hers. Instead, Dissolve AI functions like a real teacher, responding to students' individual needs.
We have this patented advanced technology to actually have the computer system generate or build a game in real time during interaction with each student.
The game teaches how to separate words into syllables. Ho says Dissolve AI already has subscribers in 38 states and that a clinical trial is underway with over 750 students in 28 schools. Users, she says, typically catch up to their grade reading level in an average of 1 to 2 years. The cost? $1,000 per school year.
The sound is puh, as in Peter.
And you're going to pick out every fish that has the puh sound.
Correct.
Pack, Pete, pole, band.
Calvin scores points with each correct answer. His father calls it a game changer.
He was resistant at first, but he persevered and he started to see the improvement.
After 2 years using Dissolve AI, Calvin went from failing English to acing it.
I feel good about my reading. I feel confident. I can read what is the material on my own.
Now excited about school and the next chapter in learning. Rahima Ellis, NBC News, Pine Bush, New York.
And coming up as we continue here, meet the man who makes sure one city runs like clockwork. We've got the good news next. Finally, there's good news tonight. We take you to Columbia, South Carolina, where time is in one man's hands. Gary Grumbach explains.
These are the gears and springs that keep Columbia, South Carolina running on time.
For the last 100 years, the antique clock they power has been a Main Street mainstay. Tim Cease is its watchman.
It's only 120 years old. It don't need much.
Every week for 50 years, Cease has opened up the box at the clock's base that houses its inner workings and cranked this weight back into position by hand, a tradition needed to keep its time accurate.
Back in the 60s and 70s, there was no such thing as a smartphone. This was all some people had.
This was it. They depended on this thing night and day.
And now, 2,500 cranks later,
Doesn't stay on time, I catch a lot of grief.
He doesn't take this gig for granted, instead taking pride in the meaning of a simple ritual.
So many people just say, well, it's just a job. Well, okay, but not for me.
What is it for you?
It's the best feeling in the world to be able to sit down and work on something like this, see it continue to run, despite everything, keep going and going and going.
Like clockwork. Gary Grumbach, NBC News, Columbia, South Carolina.
And that is Nightly News for this Friday. Thank you for watching. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.